And before I can actually answer that question, I honestly need to answer, is it all that though? What are the pros and cons? Is it worth it? And once we can answer that, hopefully us three by the end of the speech can make our decisions. And you guys as well, watching this speech, can make your decisions on whether or not you want to be famous. So, just prefacing, if any of you guys after watching this speech do become famous, it's our fault, and our Venmos and PayPals will be at the end of the speech. All right, all jokes aside, we do know how hard it will be to get famous. It's not likely, but that doesn't need to be a bad thing, right? Depending on the person, who you are, whether or not you like it. So today we're going to be talking about different ways people got famous, some pros and cons, and also how different celebrities reacted to their fame. And hopefully all of us can make a decision on whether or not we want to be famous one day.
To first answer the question, is fame all that? We first need to learn what are the many ways to get famous. And I'm going to list some of the ways to get famous. One of the easiest ways to gain fame is to be born into fame or wealth. One of the most recent examples is Elon Musk's kid, who he named X-A12. This unusual, unorthodox name, coupled with the fact that he's Elon Musk's kid, one of the most famous people on the earth, made him a national celebrity without him even doing anything. Another example is Will Smith's kids, specifically Jaden Smith. Jaden Smith uses dad's clout and fame to be in movies such as The Karate Kid, and is now a famous rapper. Another example is social media stars. A lot of people use social media to be famous, and one example is Flight Reacts. All he does is react to other people's content and also plays basketball on camera, and that made him a huge icon in the YouTube world. Another icon is Kylie Jenner. In addition to being born into the Kardashian family, she used Instagram to become a billionaire. Another harder way to gain fame is to do or create something impactful. Steve Jobs, as many of you know, founded Apple, and he made a lot of technology such as the iPhone, the iMac, various operating systems, AirPods, and things of that nature. And this made him an extremely impactful person who changed how we live to this day. Another impact person is Mahatma Gandhi, who led India to independence through a nonviolent method, and this inspired many people, including Martin Luther King Jr. Another way to get famous is to become a world famous athlete, and to do this, you have to be one of the best, if not the best, player in your specific sport. On the left, we have Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, who are the two top soccer players around the world. And as soccer is the most popular sport in the world, they're two famous people in the world. Another American example is LeBron James, who is arguably the best basketball player today and of all time, and this made him extremely famous. And finally, we have artists, and to do this, you can be a musical artist such as Drake. Whether or not you like his music, he is undoubtedly popular, and every time he drops a single or an album, he goes on the billboards, usually number one. Another example is Blanksy, who's on the right, and he's a world famous artist who had a stunt where he shredded paper, and right after he sold a $4 million painting, he also created the world famous protester painting, which is used specifically today.
Now that we got over and learned about like how people would get famous, we could talk about the pros and cons now. Okay, so before we begin, this isn't really a quote said by anyone. It's just an important statement that people should remember if you're thinking about one day being famous. So what you get famous for is what you get remembered as. So you don't want to be the person who got famous for doing something stupid online. And when cameras are on, just be careful. So because honestly, and we'll talk about this in more depth when we get to our cons, but if you get famous for the wrong things, it's really hard to make a comeback from that. And you just, want to get famous for the right reasons if you do. That's all. So here are the first two pros. The first one is that you have a chance to build your career. If you get famous for the right reasons, you have a platform to speak on, which is our next pro, and that gives you an ability to build a career off of what you've done so far. So a lot of people on social media post content and make stuff. Some people will create businesses and spread it using their fame and make money off of that and make a career off of that. But once you do get famous for certain reasons, it does get a lot easier to build your career if you're famous in a positive way. Next up is you have a platform to speak on. Many people have their own priorities and like opinions on matters in the world. And when you're famous and there's people putting their eyes on you, people watching you, you're given a platform to speak on. This is a really positive thing if you use it in the right way. And this gives you the opportunity to do something most people can't do, which is say what you want to say and get it out there and influence people. Next slide. So this next pro goes hand in hand with the last one. When you do have a platform to speak on, you can be a role model. And the public eye is always on you. People are watching you. And when there are people who are inspired by you, they'll watch you more and they'll use you as inspiration for themselves. So when you are a role model, it's heavy strain on you because you have to focus and pay attention to what you're saying. But at the same time, you're given such a great opportunity to change the world for the better. And I think that is why it becomes a pro. Finally, some people will say money does not buy happiness, money is not as important, but it really is. If we're being honest, it's really important. We can't sit here and be all preachy and say, oh, money doesn't mean anything, because it really does. In my opinion, it does mean a lot. And when you are famous, you'll get brand deals because of your fame. You can spread other businesses and you'll get money from that. And it's a lot easier to make money when you're famous. And putting aside material values, when you are famous, you do need money because people will bombard you in the public. People will try to go to your house if you don't live in a gated community. So it's really important to have money to even protect yourself in the first place, because a lot of us don't need to spend millions of dollars on 24/7 security to make sure people don't steal stuff from our home. But there's plenty of celebrities who need that. So the money is important with fame. So when we come to cons, right? So the first one is that you could be famous for the wrong reason. And I did mention this slightly before, but if you are famous for doing something stupid online or when cameras were recording, you did the wrong thing, either that fame will last for a couple seconds and nothing will come out of it, or you'll be known forever as the person who did something dumb. So I know it sounds a little harsh, but it is the harsh reality because you want to be careful what you become famous for, because the comeback to use that as your advantage usually ends up a big fail. Next up is that you have no alone time. And I did say this before with the money part, when you need a lot of security because you can't just go to the mall anymore. You can't go to the movies with your friends anymore because everyone knows you and you don't know everyone. Everyone's coming after you. People are going to stop you in public and you just can't enjoy your life. And to add on to this, people who you didn't know from years ago will feel entitled to your money, to your property. Like, I guarantee you, if I were to become famous, someone from my 7th grade class will text me and say, yo, I gave you homework in 7th grade, now give me $100,000. Like, that's stuff that's happening. That's not even an exaggeration. There was a comedian named Russell Peters who had an account about this. He said that people get so offended when he doesn't give them money just because they did him a favor a couple years ago. So it's really stressful because people will always be watching you and always be asking for stuff from you. Next up is that you have a lot of stress, and that does go hand in hand with the last one. People feel entitled to you and you have no alone time. You have lots of stress, and people will see celebrities, they'll see the money they make. Like Elon Musk recently paid himself $700 million from Tesla because of the amount of money that the company made. But so people will say they're making a lot of money. What's wrong about their life? Everything is good. But everyone fights their own demons. Everyone has their own mental health issues, physical issues, their own risks that they have to take, and everyone has problems. But fans and paparazzi, they don't realize this, and it makes a celebrity's life super stressful. And finally, everything that you do is controversial. You just can't say a word without people getting mad at you. We had a recent example of this when football quarterback Drew Brees said something about how kneeling during the national anthem is just bad and you shouldn't be doing it. When I first heard this, I didn't think much of it. I was like, okay, it's his opinion. But he got flared for saying this. And when I mean flared, people started coming after him and he could not breathe. And he had to apologize for something that was his own opinion. So when you have opinions as a famous celebrity, you're just technically not allowed to have those anymore just because of people going to get mad at you for it. But on the topic of controversy, it is possible to use this to your advantage and make this a pro. And we do have an example of this, a living example, which is our current president. And I have to give a disclaimer. when I'm saying this, it doesn't mean I believe or not believe any of his views. This is nothing political. This is just using him as an example. So something he did was when he was running for president, you guys all know he said tons of outrageous things, and his name was on every news article you could see. And the reason this is important is because all people running for president have a budget that they have to pay themselves for how much advertising they can do, how many advertisements they can put, and how much they can put their name out there. But President Trump saying these outrageous statements, all media outlets had his name there. So every time you open the news, you saw the man's name. So this saved him millions of dollars in media. And if you're wondering if it worked, it did work. He is now the president. So using controversy to your example, it's hard, not the easiest thing to do, but it's possible. So after pros and cons, can we make the decision of if it is worth it or not? Personally, I don't think we can do that yet. After looking at the pros and cons, though, this is when we actually start thinking about our decision. This is when our own opinions are the matter. This is when I can kind of make my own decision. But next up, I'm usually going to talk about celebrity accounts, and that'll help us even further and see the hidden things behind the scenes that we don't realize when we just think about the pros and cons.
So as Suchet said, our next section is celebrity accounts. These are direct interviews or actions or stories of celebrities and their accounts with fame and how it's impacted their lives. So our first person is Michael Jordan. For those of you who don't know, Michael Jordan is a 6-time NBA champion, an NBA Hall of Famer, the current owner of the NBA team in Charlotte called the Hornets, and widely considered to be one of the greatest basketball players of all time. So recently there was a documentary made about Michael Jordan called The Last Dance. And in one of the episodes, there's a scene where Michael Jordan is sitting completely alone in his hotel room with just him sitting on the couch watching TV and the cameraman. So the cameraman starts asking him some questions about his personal life, and Michael Jordan says, "This is basically the only alone time I get, when I'm in my hotel room with no one else around, when he gets to watch TV." He says, "Every time I leave my hotel room, I'm just immediately bombarded by so many people, and he just doesn't get any time to be alone," because he was in that time during the 90s, and still now, he's one of the most recognizable people on earth. Everyone knew who he was, not even just in the USA, but abroad too, because of all the time he's played with the United States national basketball team. He would go to Europe and places, and people would immediately know that's Michael Jordan, and they want to get pictures and they want autographs and even touch him because they love him so much. In fact, there's scenes in the documentary where the Bulls come back from winning a game, and immediately at the hotel, they can't even get off the bus because there's so many people waiting to meet them. And the security has to go through and clear a path for Michael Jordan and his entire team to walk through. So he talks about how this is such a stressful thing for him, how there's no downtime for him. There's no real personal time for him except for those few moments where he gets to be alone. For him, no matter what, you're a public figure. Everything you say is controversial to everyone, and you always have to be ready for a fan because you don't want a fan to have a bad experience with you. So our next celebrity is George Clooney, who is an Academy Award-winning actor, outspoken political activist, and he's acted in many award-winning movies and TV shows. So recently in an interview, George Clooney said that it's been over 15 years since he last just had a nice walk through Central Park, because he knows that if he were to go outside, he would immediately be bombarded by so many fans that it would become a problem. He can't enjoy a personal life like that anymore because so many people recognize him that going outside becomes a chore on its own. This is also a problem when it becomes where celebrities can't really make friends because they don't know if they're friends with that person because they want their money or because they want to be friends with them because they're famous or because it's just or because they genuinely think they're a nice person. So they might have issues with trusting people that they meet now. So our next person is Bill Gates. The first two were quite negative, but this is an example of a positive person. Bill Gates uses his immense resources and his platform to go out and help with top ideas that he really cares about. One such thing is his relentless attack at malaria. He goes to many developing nations in Africa and Asia, and he tries to help cure malaria in these places. So using his fame and his wealth, he's created a platform where he can speak on this topic that he cares a lot about. Another thing that he's done is in Seattle, which I'm not sure, I don't agree with this, but he went out and he tried to get charter schools more funding, and using his immense wealth and his platform, he was able to get the vote to go through and have Seattle have charter school funding. So again, we come back to this question, is it worth it? So in my opinion, no, I don't think the fame is worth it. I think I'd rather be rich but not famous because, as I said, you develop all these trust issues. You don't know if people actually want to be around you because you're famous or because you're just a nice guy. And also, everything you do becomes a chore if you're in the public because everyone's always watching you. Also, it starts to put immense stress on your family because now, let's like Will Smith, your kids are constantly being watched. What are your kids up to? What is your spouse up to? Everything you do, every single part about your life is so scrutinized. So Chase, how about you?
Me personally, I'm on the same side as you. I feel like the fame isn't really necessary, but I am a loud person, so I wouldn't mind it. I feel like it wouldn't ruin my life because I could use it to my advantage, and I talk a lot, which is, if I do it right, it could be a good thing. But at the same time, I don't trust myself to say uncontroversial things all the time because I have my own opinions. And also, if I were to think about my future kids, their life would be horrible because then they would be in the public eye as well, and they won't be able to get anything out of it. So honestly, I'm really happy that the chances of me being famous are so low, just because I feel like it's just not worth it after looking at the pros and cons and all these other things that we talked about.
All right, and Anush?
To keep it brief, I would not be famous, mainly because I don't want to deal with the pressure of pleasing everybody. If I want to do something, I want to be intrinsically motivated or motivated due to my own personal interests, but not motivated because someone else wants me to do something. Specifically, if you look at athletes or actors or artists, they always have to please people and they always have to be on their A game, and that can be immensely stressful, especially on your mental health.
All right, so now that we've gone through how to become famous, the pros and cons of fame, and some celebrity accounts, we want to bring you back to the question we asked at the start. Is fame all that? So for all you adults out there, it might be a little too late for you, but for all the kids on TikTok trying to make dance videos, trying to become famous, after all we've gone through, just make your own decision. Is fame really all that? Thank you.
Thank you to the three of you. I think that